Welcome to Hoovy's Garage, the dumbest automotive channel in all of YouTube. And today, hey, you can't do that. Wait, what do you mean I can't do that? Who the hell are you? I'm you, but different. What do you mean you're me? I'm me. Who are you? Wait, what? What? Well, that was odd. Anyway, I'm gonna give you guys an 8-month update on my used Tesla Model 3 with over 215,000 miles on it. I'm gonna tell you what I like, what I don't, what I've had to replace, what I still need to replace, what I've modified for my Model 3, my mom's Traverse, and the Express van. And just because I'm curious, I'm gonna take them all to the drag strip, except I'm not, because last time I went there, they tried to kick me out for doing basically nothing. So this time I have purchased a Dragy GPS chip to find out what the quarter-mile time is for each of the vehicles you see here. Roll the intro. Here's the background on this car. About 8 months ago, back in December, we traveled to North Carolina and purchased this 2019 Model 3 long-range all-wheel drive for $15,000. At the time, it had 205,000 miles on it. Now it has 216,000 miles on it. I've put around 11 to 12,000 miles on it in that 8 months. Most of you guys would think, oh, it's gotta be falling apart. Teslas are built like crap. Yes, but actually no. There's two parts to this story. There are quite a few things that I like and don't like about this car. Let's start with what I do like. The technology is fantastic, as to be expected because it's a computer on wheels. This thing is an iPad with wheels. This thing has every feature that you could need in a vehicle. It has a built-in dash cam, dog mode, autopilot, blind spot cameras, auto park if you pay for that, which I don't, but it's nice to have. The supercharger network, the fantastic mobile app experience. It just has a lot of features that most other cars, especially in this price point in the used market, do not have. None of the used cars on the market at this price point offer those features, and I like that about this thing. I also love how practical it is. It's super cheap to fuel. It has tons of cargo space despite the small size of the vehicle. It handles very well. It's like a go-kart, and also it's extremely quick, even though it's not a performance, but it does 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. Way faster than I think most cars need to be, especially for 15 grand. This thing is kind of a performance bargain. Now, do I wish I would have gotten the performance model? Of course I do, but who doesn't? There are some things I don't like. Let's start with the first. The build quality is kind of horrendous. The paint is extremely cheap and thin. There's tons of rock chips and scratches all over the car. Again, being a black car doesn't help that situation. But then again, the paint is still not very good quality. There also is a ton of rattles on the interior, and there are blemishes which have been caused partially because of usage and partially because of the materials not being up to snuff. That's the number one thing I don't like. The second thing I don't like is the range. Now, technically, it's not the car's fault because motorcycle. Technically, it's not the car's fault because of the wheels and tires I've put on it, which I'll talk about when I get to the modifications. But this thing only goes about 150 miles on the highway, and that's not a lot of range. I wish it had at least 200 miles of usable highway range, which it did before I put these tires on it, but now it doesn't. And also the battery degradation doesn't help because it's such high mileage. It's only got about 80% of its usable life left, which is still plenty for daily use, but road tripping it is kind of a pain with these wheels and tires. But those are the two things I really don't like, and those are honestly the only two things I don't like, both of which are partially my fault. Other than that, this thing is pretty great. But first, let's talk about the defects, because I had mentioned the build quality, and some of them are build quality related, and some of them are because I'm an idiot. Starting up front, you'll notice a few issues. First off, rock chips. A lot of cars get rock chips. Teslas are especially bad because the paint is thin and soft. There's rock chips, they don't really bother me. That's just a problem with the Tesla paint being soft, especially right here where I got a little bit too close with the power washer and peeled the paint right off the bumper. So again, my fault, but still kind of annoying, especially down here. Down here, there is an even more obvious area where paint is missing because I got too close with the pressure washer. However, I did spray paint over that, so it looks good from afar, but it's far from good. Other things relating to the front that are a bit of an issue. One, there's a massive scratch right here and down here. Down here, you'll notice that there is a zip tie holding the front bumper together. I may have had a little bit of trail damage, I guess you'd call it. I did some light off-roading on my property and proceeded to rip half of the bumper off of the car. So I had to reattach it and reaffix this bumper, with a zip tie. You know, the approach angle isn't great, so we're gonna fix that later on. Moving down to the side, you'll notice a few things. One, door ding. Now, it's not super bad on this side. The other side is much worse. It has two pretty significant door dings on it. Doesn't bother me. Again, I bought this car specifically because my Polestar was a bit too nice and I didn't want people to door ding it because people in Texas are ignorant. Don't take that out of context, please. Speaking of this door handle, while I'm here, it occasionally just stays out whenever you open the door, which means it won't latch. So basically it'll be stuck like this, and when you close the door, you know, it doesn't latch. That is a little bit of an issue, but it doesn't bother me. It only happens about once every couple weeks. It's not the end of the world. Some other defects. You'll notice if you look on the driver's side windows, there is a scratch in the tint from me being an idiot with an umbrella. The second thing you'll notice is that there is some pitting in the window glass, and that is from sparks from a grinder striking this window and chipping the glass, which there's just some little black speckles that can't be removed. And I'm not gonna replace the glass unless it completely breaks. And then on this rear window, the tint is starting to peel away. You just gotta get it retinted. This little fender liner is a little bit loose. Some scratches down here, of course. Starting with the interior defects. The center console, you'll notice that it's wrapped, but one, the wrap is starting to peel. And if you look closely, you can see that there's actually a little lip right here. That's because the actual piano black underneath this started to peel off. So I just had to wrap over it. Yeah, that's not great. You'll notice there's significant wear on the armrest from where I rest my arm, obviously, as the car does have quite a few miles on it. You'll notice I have a steering wheel cover in place because the leather on the actual steering wheel itself is starting to scratch and peel in this lower section right here, so I covered that up so it stops doing that. You'll notice that my steering column is actually wrapped in duct tape because this lower trim panel under here was rattling really bad, so I just taped it to make it stop vibrating because that's really annoying to hear bzzz from this little thing the whole time while you're driving. If you look to the driver's side door card, you'll see some duct tape as the leather over here was starting to peel off, so I just taped over that to make sure it doesn't peel any further. This little piece of trim right here is just detached and just dangling right there. You'll notice the lower edge of my touch screen right here is actually starting to either delaminate or fade. I don't know why it's gray right there. You can see on the outside. It's not on this upper edge. It's just this right side edge and this bottom edge that's just starting to fade a little bit. You also notice my seat has a little bit of wear right here, which is a little unfortunate. Speaker grill down here is cracked, but overall the interior is mostly beat up just because of the driving. On the console right here and the steering wheel and the touch points are worn down, like the blinker socks. You can see the rest of the interior has held up actually pretty well considering how many miles are on the car, as you can see right there. Interior, not the end of the world. Let's move around to the back. Now, honestly, around back, it's actually not that bad from a defect standpoint. There's not really any super large scratches that aren't unusual for a black car. There is a massive panel gap right there, but I think that's partially because of a modification I've done with the trunk struts, but we'll get to that in a second. You'll notice that I have installed that hitch, which means this edge is a little bit jagged from where we cut the bumper, as you can see there. But other than that, the back doesn't really have any huge defects, which I like because this is the part of the car that people will see most when it's on the road, and I just opened the charge port on accident. Close. There we go. I just realized there's condensation in my taillight. I guess there must be a little bit of a leak in the seals right here. And I guess while we're back here talking about modifications, of course, let's start at the back because we're already back here. Tow hitch. This thing has actually been surprisingly useful for towing. Now, the range is god-awful while towing. I typically get about 60, that is 60 miles on a full charge. That is horrendous, but then again, when I'm towing something, I'm not towing it for very far. It's usually just towing the lawnmower over to a friend's house to mow their yard. Maybe I'll tow a max of about 40 miles in a day, so it does the job, especially because all the roads around me are highways. So it doesn't help that I'm on these tires towing at highway speed with hard acceleration because traffic out here moves pretty darn fast. The tow hitch has been super nice, especially because the lights are wired up properly, so the turn signals, the brake lights all work perfectly. There also is trailer brakes wired up to the 7-pin connector, so the trailer brakes are actually functional if you need to tow something that heavy. Popping the trunk, you'll notice it opens for you with these little struts that I installed just the other day and springs. That might have to do with this panel gap right here, but then again, it's super nice to have the trunk open for you. Now, it is a little bit hard to close, as you can see. You gotta put a lot of effort into closing it. Then again, if you're doing it like a normal person and just pushing on the paint's really hot, if you just push like this, it's not super hard to close. But back here, the really only other thing you'll notice in the trunk is the lattice work for the tow hitch right here. You also notice down here we have some rear mud flaps. There was some on the front, but a stick poked a hole through them, so I took them off because they looked terrible after that. And now we're just with the rear ones. Those are all the modifications at the back. Now let's move to the tires. These are Sparco Terra wheels wrapped in Falken Wild Peak AT Trails. 235/50 R18. Anyway, these are an 18x8-inch wheel with a positive 35mm offset, again, Sparco brand. I love these tires. They're not efficient at all for an EV, but they handle surprisingly well off-road and on-road. They're surprisingly quiet and they're not super expensive. So if you're looking for a admittedly light-duty all-terrain tire, these are a pretty good option, I will say. You also notice that this gap right here is quite large because I have installed a 1.85-inch lift from T-Sportline on this car to give it a little bit more ground clearance. Moving to the inside, you'll notice that there is a sexy button on this door right here. The sexy buttons are great because they have a fantastic app to control the commander, which you can see stuff from the car's BMS, and also shut off the front or rear motor if you want to run front wheel drive or rear wheel drive. You can also disable the traction control via that button. So it's a nice thing to have, especially because there's no way to open the frunk from the outside. To open the frunk, I have it to where you double click this button and it automatically pops open. Down here, I have one, the plug for my trailer brake controller, and two, a switch that goes to the wheel speed sensor to disable traction control. That's a useful feature to have, and I actually installed that before we installed the sexy buttons. I also have an aftermarket phone mount, a center console wrap, and an aftermarket screen protector to protect my display. And in the back seat, there's not really been anything done to it apart from floor mats in the front and the rear. There's also an air freshener and some little stickers to help people find out how to open the door. This isn't technically related to the interior, but I did get the CCS retrofit, so now I can charge my car on any CCS station with this Tesla provided adapter. Moving up front, you'll notice that this is an aftermarket license plate bracket. Texas requires a front plate, but since this car was from North Carolina where they don't have front plates, there wasn't a bracket, so I bought an aftermarket one. And also up front, which you can't easily see, we installed a metal skid plate, quote unquote, to help protect the battery pack in the front drive unit. Also, as you noticed before, if I open the mobile app and open the frunk, you can see that it automatically lifts up with these extra struts that I have installed to replace these ones. Before we drive this thing, let's talk about maintenance items. The first thing I want to tell you guys is that this thing has survived a lot of abuse. I abused this thing kind of like I hate it, even though I actually love this car, because I know the electric drivetrain is not going to care if I floor it. So I'm going to floor it because it's fun. The first actual problem that occurred that I actually fixed was the lower control arm on the front driver's side wheel. It had failed presumably after we jumped it, although I can't actually confirm if that's true. But that's approximately when the noises when I was turning started happening. It was going when I was turning. Keep in mind that I have done a lot of things with this thing. I've towed 15,000 pounds with it. I've jumped it, rallied it, and took it to the drag strip. So I've done a lot of abuse to this thing and it still keeps holding up. And now half my horn doesn't work. Now, the other things that I do need to fix as far as mechanical things go is I need to replace the 12-volt battery, because when we accidentally ran it out of charge on purpose, we drained the 12-volt battery to the point where it kind of damaged it, so now it needs to be replaced. And that might be why my car has pretty significant phantom drain, because I went on vacation for about 6 days and I lost 30% of my battery when it was just sitting. That's ridiculous. I think it was because it was topping up that 12-volt battery the whole time. Yeah, the last thing that I need to fix is the alignment. Ever since I replaced that control arm, the alignment's been ever so slightly off. Instead of going straight holding it at the 12 o'clock position, it's like maybe at the 1 o'clock position. It still drives straight if you hold the wheel at that slight angle, but then again, it does still need an alignment. And I also do need to rotate my tires because I haven't rotated them in about 8,000 miles. So I probably need to rotate them if I want them to last long. But when you don't have oil changes to take it in to get rotated, you never remember to. So I need to put that on my to-do list. Anyway, those are the maintenance items. Now let's take this thing out on the road and do the 0 to 60 testing, because this thing is by far the fastest vehicle that we own right now. So let's go. All right, this is the Dragy GPS device. As you can see, I have a little magnet on my dash, cellular device. Open the Dragy app, wait for this stupid ad, then you click connect, connecting to Dragy, there you go. Now it says sending satellite data, boom, now it's connected. So it's pretty simple. It looks like it's about to start raining, so I'm gonna do the driving segment now and then shoot B-roll later. Not only are we gonna talk about the 0 to 60 time, we're also gonna talk about the driving experience of this car. First off, the acceleration is faster than it needs to be for what I need. It's got plenty of power. And the reason why I said I want the performance model is not because of the power, it's because of track mode. I wish this had track mode. I wish Tesla would offer a software unlock because this car and the performance are the same car hardware-wise. Let's do a 0 to 60 pull here because this road is pretty straight and flat. Come to a stop. 3, 2, 1, floor it. Zero to 60, 4.5. There's the 8th mile. We're not gonna go to the quarter because the stop sign's right down there. Anyway, let's do a 0 to 60 here while there's no cars coming. We're at 70%. Floor it. 30. 70. Is there anyone coming? No, I let out of it. 0 to 60, 4.7, but that was again on the slight uphill. All right, let's try it here. Slight downhill. 0 to 60, 4.48. Let's try to go all the way to the corner. Quarter mile, 12.71. It would do a quarter in under 13 seconds. Let's actually do a little bit of a handling assessment. So we're gonna go around this corner at probably 0. Now in most cars I wouldn't do this above 60, but this thing handles like a freaking go-kart, so. See, and we're on all-terrain tires too, and we're hustling through this corner. That just goes to show how well the Model 3 handles performance driving. And this isn't even the performance suspension, this is just the long-range suspension, which isn't super soft, but then again, it's not stiff either. Go this way, make sure one's coming. We'll go back through that corner again. Foot to the floor, 40, 50, 60. Now I gotta be careful over these train tracks because then you can kind of, it unsettles the car a little bit. Full throttle into the corner. 0 miles an hour. 0 through the corner on all-terrain tires, keep that in mind. On all terrains. Honestly, this thing handles so good that it makes me forget that we're on all-terrain tires. And again. 30. 60. Go all the way to the corner here. Okay. Quarter mile, 13.05, but it was uphill. Okay, so you just saw in the 0 to 60 testing, we did a 13-second quarter mile, but it was uphill and only at 60% state of charge. So this thing can easily do 12s, and the 0 to 60 is easily in the 4.5 seconds or lower territory. It's pretty quick, but now, since we're back, let's talk about, do I regret buying this car? And the answer is absolutely not. Now, if I was to do it again, there'd be a few things I would do different, but as far as do I regret this specific car purchase, the answer is no. I do not regret buying this thing. Let's move on to the next vehicle, the Chevy Traverse. All right, next vehicle, we have our 2023 Chevrolet Traverse LT Cloth front wheel drive. Let's start about what I like about this vehicle. The powertrain. This has a 3.6 liter naturally aspirated V6 under the hood paired to a ZF 9-speed automatic, and it is surprisingly potent, making 310 horsepower. This thing will destroy the admittedly very bald front tires off the line, and it gets surprisingly good fuel economy on the highway for a vehicle of this size, about 28 miles per gallon. That's pretty good considering how large this thing is and how much space there is on the inside. Another thing I appreciate is, again, how much space there is. The third row I can actually fit in, and I can fit in basically every seat with good ample legroom and headroom. So this thing is actually very, very spacious, even though it's not a full-size SUV like a Tahoe. Another thing I appreciate is the simplicity of the dashboard layout. The newer Traverses have quite an intrusive screen that you kind of have to use to control everything in the car. This screen is a lot more basic, and that's kind of what my mom wanted out of her car. She didn't want a massive iPad like my Tesla. Now granted, for me it doesn't bother me, but for her it does, and that's why she picked the 23 Traverse instead of waiting for the 24 model year. And I'm glad she did, because the 24 model year has a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder turbo with an 8-speed automatic versus this 9-speed. Let's talk about what I don't like. The drivability of this car in the rain is severely affected by front wheel drive, especially with bald tires. This thing torque steers quite aggressively in the rain. It hydroplanes a little easily. Not the end of the world, but you just have to know you can't accelerate and turn because it'll just torque steer its way off the road. It's a little bit sketch. Another thing I don't like, the traction control, even when it's switched to its off position, is very intrusive. This thing will not let the wheel slip for more than like 2 revolutions before it cuts in. It's kind of annoying. Why even let us turn the traction control off if it's not actually off? The headlights, well, they look nice and they are down here in the lower front fascia where fog lights would normally go. Chevy cannot get this right. Every time they do this lighting signature, they angle the headlights way too far up on their low beam setting, causing people to constantly flash us even when our high beams are not on. This has been a problem on every new Chevy I've driven. The Traverse, the Trailblazer, the newer updated Traverse, they all have this issue apart from their trucks, which don't have this lighting signature. So I don't know, they need to angle the lights a little bit further down so you don't blind people. And another thing relating to the headlights that I don't like is the fact that the high beams barely make any difference. You turn the high beams on and it gets maybe 15% brighter. So it's not a huge difference. And the throw doesn't really change too much because then again, these are angled up too far anyway on their low beam setting. So I don't really like the headlights on this car. While I did say that the seats were comfortable in terms of their room, these specific seats I do have a bit of a problem with. They don't really fit my body shape, and especially the rear seats, they have a metal beam running across the upper front part of the bottom seat cushion. So if you're not sitting completely upright, your butt kind of rests on that metal part and it can get really uncomfortable after, heck, even an hour in the car. It shouldn't be there. I'm assuming the leather seats probably are considerably more comfortable, but we didn't want leather because if we got leather, it wouldn't be ventilated, and where we live, you have to have ventilated seats if it's leather, or a way to start the car from the remote, which this car does have remote start, and that's another thing that's really nice to have, and I should have put that in the things I like section. Let's talk about mechanical problems. This has really only had one, and it was the mass airflow sensor randomly stopped working at about 32,000 miles. The car has 34,500 miles-ish on it right now. So not too long ago, we had to replace that sensor. It just start, run very rumbly and poorly for about 5 seconds and then stall. After doing this process maybe 5 times, the car would eventually start and you could get it to run and drive. So we replaced the mass airflow sensor. That fixed the issue. That was the only thing that we've had to replace on this car so far. What we do need to replace are these tires. These are balder than Shaquille O'Neal or Mr. Clean. They don't have a lot of tread left. Now, granted, they are the factory tires, so they have lasted 34,000 miles of pretty aggressive driving. When I'm driving this thing, stoplights just because it's fun. Especially for such a large front wheel drive vehicle, don't expect the tires to last super long if you have a lead foot. And that's really it. The 12-volt battery's fine. We've changed the oil every 5,000 miles approximately, 4,000 to 5,000 miles. Don't need to change the trans fluid yet, don't need to change the coolant yet. It's just been a perfectly reliable vehicle for the past 2 years. Now, granted, when this thing ages, it's not like a Toyota that it's probably gonna run forever. It might have some issues. Just be aware that if you buy one of these, it might have some issues way down the road. Generally, I really like this car, but let's then talk about the single modification that we've done to it. The dash cam. You know me, I gotta have a dash cam in every car that I drive. I've had way too many close calls with poor Texas driving etiquette and skill. So every single one of these vehicles you see here has an aftermarket dash cam, apart from the Tesla, but the Tesla has Sentry mode built in, so I don't need that feature. So yeah, that's the Traverse. Let's take it for a drive. Traverse first time, yeah, I couldn't recommend the Traverse highly enough. Now, can't attest to reliability too much because, you know, we've only had it for 2 years, but it's honestly been a fantastic daily driver for my mom. She loves having the space because her previous car was a Hyundai Elantra, and that was a bit small. So, driving this car, I'm gonna let the engine warm up before I romp on it, but gently accelerating right now. Let's get out on the road, and then I'm just gonna floor it, and we'll see what she does. 3, 2, 1, go. Wheel spin. There we go. 0 to 67.75. Stop again. 3, 2, 1, go. 7.18 seconds verified. Quarter mile, 15:33. Turn the wipers off. Auto start stop off. Let's brake torque it. Launched a little softer there. Turn the wipers on. 60, slight downhill. Keep flooring it. Oh, it's raining now. Okay, let's slow down. That's sketchy. I thought it was just lightly drizzling, but no, it's raining fully now. 0 to 60, 683, which basically, the downhill basically just helped it with the launch. Quarter mile, 1473 verified. Oh, it's coming down. That's as fast as the wipers go. There, I can't see anything. And merge onto the highway here. Draggy. Traction control. Come on, car! Traction control was flashing the whole way there. I'm trying to get out of the way of this guy coming. Holy crap, it's raining. That was on the floor. Did it even register? Yeah, it didn't even register. It didn't reset. It didn't come to a stop. Dang, this thing's charging fast. 135 miles range, 140. Yeah, I mean, I will admit, gas cars are pretty nice when it comes to refueling times. Okie dokie. Got the receipt. Let's get in here. Oh, wheel hop. Oh, torque steer's bad too. What was that? Probably a 9. What was it? 1048. She's a little twitchy in the rain. It's sketchy when it's this wet out to it. Wheel spin. That was like a quarter throttle. Beep boop bop, beep boop. Beep boop, beep boop bop. Oh, it's raining more again. Oh my god. I can't see anything. Oh my god. Turn your lights on. Lights on. People don't know, people don't understand that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to postpone the video until tomorrow because it's gonna be so wet. Alright, 23 Traverse with bald tires. Let's try this. Brake torque.
30. 60. Quarter mile.
Much softer launch than I was expecting with this car. Normally this thing roasted off the line. Traction control's back on this time. I'm just gonna mat it.
30. 60.
There we go.
Quarter mile.
Alright, let's give it a bit of an advantage. We'll give it a downhill to compensate for the really bald tires. 3, 2, 1.
30. 60. Quarter mile.
14.6 quarter. Downhill, but still. I think if on a prepped surface and you had more traction, it'd probably do about that. Moving on to the third vehicle in this video, the 2006 Chevy Express. It is a 3500 with the 6-liter LQ4 LS motor, and it has been perfectly reliable. Ever since we changed the oil pressure has climbed up to where it's about 40 pounds when cruising, and when you step on it, it gets up to 60, right where it should be. Oil pressure's good, the transmission shifts great. It drives perfectly good. What I like and what I don't. Let's start with what I don't like. First off, the gas mileage on this thing, oh my God, it is bad. This thing gets maybe 12 miles per gallon on a good day. It is a gas guzzler and a half, so I don't like driving it very much. I've only put about 2,000 miles on it in, I think, the 2 or 3 months that we've had it. Granted, that is about the average that a person drives it in a year, but that's quite a bit low considering what I put on my Tesla. Another thing I don't like is that this thing is not super easy to park, but obviously it makes sense, it's big. We did weld the rear diff. That also makes it even more difficult to park since it doesn't turn very well anymore. What I do like, the powertrain is actually pretty robust. These things can handle quite a bit of power, which will make it super easy to get this thing towards 500 to 600 wheel horsepower, which is I think where it needs to be a true sleeper. Another thing I actually like is the seating position is surprisingly nice to drive around in. It's actually surprisingly comfortable considering it's a 3500 cargo van. The suspension's actually surprisingly soft, although it's a little bit floaty, especially on the front end. But then again, it's not uncomfortable. Let's talk about what we've needed to replace on this thing. And surprisingly, as far as maintenance items, there hasn't been that many things that we've done / have needed to do. We did replace the O2 sensors after we modified the exhaust, which I'll talk about when we got to modifications. We resprayed part of the van because the paint was peeling everywhere, and it looks good from afar, but it's far from good. Let's put it that way. The paint is quite rough to the texture, already starting to peel in some places. I don't know, it's not the best paint job. I might Raptor line this, as long as the process isn't too annoying to do. I might consider Raptor lining this thing white, just to have a nice durable finish. We also changed the oil and filter. I replaced the rear tail light housings because the bolts holding them on had snapped off the little tabs. And I also replaced the rear tail light bulb on the driver's side as well. I need to do some other things, so let's talk about those. It needs a new clock spring for the airbag because when you honk the horn going straight, it doesn't work. You have to turn right for the horn to work, which is weird. That's also a little bit odd. We need to replace the ABS pump because the ABS light is on and does not function as properly. The front wheels just lock up when you hit the brakes, which is a little bit scary when It's a little scary when it's raining. So I don't drive this thing when it rains. And another thing we need to do is there is a minor exhaust leak where it meets the muffler, where the two pipes can join and go into the muffler. There's a little bit of a leak there. And that is pretty much all we need to fix on this thing, apart from recharging the AC and changing the cabin air filter. But those are just typical maintenance things of a vehicle of this age. It's definitely got a lot of wear and tear, but surprisingly for 205,000 miles, it's actually held up decently well. Let's talk about modifications, because there are quite a few modifications to this thing. If you watch my drag racing video, you'll know that we actually installed electronic dump valves on the exhaust. So there's a little switch under the dash that you can flip to open the exhaust and bypass the muffler. You also notice that we put some @VanSucks banners on it just to let people know that this is my van. Changed the tires. So the front tires, we put them on the back and then we got new tires for the front. The new tires that are on the front though are the absolute cheapest ones that Discount Tire had in stock. Another thing we did, we actually got the van tuned at Indiana Muscle Car to add about 40 to 50 horsepower, we estimate. It definitely runs a lot better after the tune than before, that's for sure. But it still is a bit of a dog, and I'll talk about that when we get to go drive it in a minute. We also welded the rear diff, so both wheels spin when trying to do a burnout. That was a problem that we needed to fix because when we went to the drag strip, it just did one wheel wonders the whole time. It didn't go anywhere. We also installed a dash cam in the van because I do not trust people. People drive like absolute idiots in Texas, and I don't know. I'll link a video up on the card to all my dash cam clips that I posted in an earlier video, but people just drive so bad around here. So it's literally a must-have to have a dash cam. If you don't have one, please get one. I highly recommend it. It hasn't saved me yet, but it's captured quite a few incidents, let's put it that way. We also put on a steering wheel cover because the steering wheel was disintegrating a little bit. And then the final modification that I can remember off the top of my head is the head unit. We put in a dual head unit. Dual is the brand name. It's got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it works perfectly well. And it's hooked up to the backup camera, so you can click the little button, and when you're in reverse, the backup camera will come on so you can actually see because there's no rear window. Some of its defects, which you'll notice there are quite a few of, mostly regarding the paint. As you can see there, the paint's kind of splotchy. It's missing the Chevy bow tie little yellow piece. And there's a bunch of other things, like right here, you'll notice I tried to fix the fading door handle with a Sharpie and got some overlap here. So when you're about this far away, it looks totally fine until you get up close and realize that the paint's chipping, and then the Sharpie things, it's just trim overlap when we were painting it because we didn't care. It's not the prettiest, but it's functional, and that's the point. Anyway, let's go drive this thing. That's enough talking. I'm just excited to get this thing out on the road because it actually is more fun to drive than you would think, considering how large it is. So let's go. All right, cold start. 85 degrees out here, but the engine's cold, so that's what matters. Exhaust valve open. Let's see. Instantly, it quiets right up when you close the valve. I'm gonna connect the Dragy, put my phone in the phone mount. All right, so as you can see there, the backup camera does work, which is nice. And it's now at 205,415 miles, which is ironically 11,000 miles less than my Model 3. Anyway, let's get out on the road. Let's let the engine warm up a little bit. So there's nothing wrong with the powertrain as far as like daily drivable aspects go. It's just not fast, you know. Then again, does it have to be? No, but I'd like it to be a little quicker, and we're gonna get to that point eventually. Yeah, but with the valved exhaust, it just sounds kind of like a stock van. It's a little bit louder because there's no catalytic converters in it. It's honestly pretty bearable. It's pretty drivable with the valves closed. Now when you open them, it's really freaking loud in here. Like, it rattles the whole van. And yeah, it's pretty insane. You can see some skid marks on the road, or maybe not. I don't know, the camera might be too low. There's skid marks on the road from me doing a 90-mile-an-hour wheel speed burnout in this thing. Same shirt because I wanted it to look like it was filmed on the same day, but it's raining again, unfortunately. So at low speed, it's really hard to make U-turns and stuff because of the welded diff. Or if I can. That's just in drive, that's not in like, yeah, what was that? 10.98 seconds. Brake boost it. There we go. Shifting. 10.03 fronts you can't turn, but then the rears force you to turn. So which one's better? I don't know. To hit neutral when trying to shift. Let's try this again. First gear, let's brake torque it this time. Get a little burnout.
30. 60.
There we go.
Quarter mile.
Let out of it in the quarter, but didn't really make much difference. And last, but certainly not least, we have my dad's 2021 Dodge Ram 3500 with the 6.7 liter standard output Cummins engine. Let's talk about what we like and what we don't like. First off, what I like, this thing makes plenty of torque, basically at every RPM, although it doesn't rev that high. But this thing is basically effortless when it comes to acceleration. You can just barely put your foot in it. You don't have to floor this thing. I will floor it once when we go out and drive this thing, but you don't have to, which is nice for daily driving. Another thing I like, the road presence of this thing makes you feel like you are invincible compared to, obviously, my Model 3. Makes sense because it's very large. Another thing that's been great for my dad is the towing capability. This thing capable of towing at least 30,000 pounds with a gooseneck trailer, so you can have a lot of crap on this thing and it'll still pull it. Another thing that's been nice is the amount of cargo space on it with the aftermarket utility workbox on it. What do we don't like? Well, obviously the fuel economy is pretty bad, but still not as bad as the Express van somehow. This thing gets around 12 to 13 miles per gallon on the highway, which considering how much bigger it is in terms of weight and engine displacement, this thing is surprisingly efficient compared to the Express van. I don't know how the Express van is so bad on gas. Another thing, this thing is extremely hard to park because of how long it is. This is a crew cab with an 8-foot bed, so it's kind of a school bus when it comes to parking, and it's a little bit cumbersome. The fourth thing I don't like is that the brake pedal is kind of squishy and a little disconcerting. It doesn't really have very good pedal feedback. I guess it kind of makes sense for something this big. You just push, and it just like goes straight to the floor, and it does stop well. It just doesn't feel very confidence inspiring. The daytime running lights on these 5th gen Rams have started to fail. Let me see if I can turn on the lights to show you that. All right, now you can see, so this part up here is lit up, but this part isn't. The LED strip has started failing on both sides, so that's not great. This truck does have 110,647 miles on it, so for only being a 4-year-old pickup with 110,000 miles on it, it's held up okay. However, let's talk about maintenance. First off, we've had to replace the tires a few times. Obviously makes sense. We've also had to replace the brakes. He did rear shocks. He's put new wiper blades on it. He is warranted. He's had the lifters replaced in the top of the engine, and it actually needs those replaced again. You kind of hear the tick a little bit. I think it's a little worse on this side. Got a little lifter tick. You can kind of hear it back here because you can hear it ticking at idle. So yeah, that's not great. But then again, the truck is quite heavy with the working box on it, so it's hauling around a lot of extra weight that it's not used to. And also this is, again, the standard output Cummins, not the high output. So a little bit more stress there. He's also had the DEF injector replaced under warranty. But those are the maintenance items. Obviously, he's done oil changes every 5 to 10,000 miles in between there because it's a diesel. You can run them a little bit longer, but it's still good to change them around 5,000 miles. Anyway, now let's move on to aftermarket modifications. As you can see, there are quite a few. Starting with the front, there's a dash cam because, again, I don't trust people. The wheels, which you'll notice are black instead of silver. Traditionally, these trucks come with silver wheels. I think he got them powder coated or painted or something like that. So those are black. You'll notice in the back of the truck, you have the 8-foot working box on it. Has all his tools in it, has a 100-gallon fuel cell in it. That alone makes this truck probably weigh about 9,500 pounds just sitting here. It'll be interesting to see if it's faster or slower than the Express van. I'm gonna guess on par, maybe a little bit slower. I don't actually know. Now, as far as defects go, there is some scratches and wear and tear items, especially on the interior. You'll notice that it's quite dirty because he keeps a lot of stuff in it. and his working box paint has started to chip and rust a little bit just because it wasn't very nice to begin with. The working boxes aren't painted super nice. But overall, this thing has held up pretty well, and he plans to keep it until it dies. So you had a 2012 Ram 2500 before this. He got it up to about 330,000 miles and then sold it. Let's go take this thing out on the road and see how this massive land yacht, if you can even call it that, handles. I mean, it is fairly nice inside. It has ventilated seats and stuff, so I guess you can call it a land yacht because it is a Laramie. It's not a Tradesman or whatever the base model is. Let's take it out on the street. Okay, let's take this big thingy out on the road. Start her up. Buckle the seatbelt, put it into drive, and let's see. So obviously this thing is large. Obviously there's a lot of perform service. Rear park sense is unavailable because of the working bed doesn't have parking sensors installed. Let's connect the Dragy real quick. Ooh, an NEOS Grenadier. I like those. They're way too expensive, but they're cool. All right, driving the big utility wagon. Now this thing drives like a school bus because it actually shares an engine with Thomas C2 school buses and the ICCE variant as well, because they both have the 6.7 liter Cummins as an option. Now it is not the high output, which means it doesn't have the 1,025 pound-feet of torque or whatever. So the one thing that's a big problem with driving this, as far as the powertrain goes, is the 6-speed automatic 6th gear is way too short, and I'm assuming it's because they use the same transmission in the 3500 and the 2500, but the 2500 has a less aggressive rear axle ratio. 6th gear is a lot taller than this. This truck is a very short 6th gear, so you're basically redlining in 6th at about 100 miles an hour or so. I would guess it's basically just limited top speed based on the RPM limitation of the engine. As you can see, I'm slowing down here. I'm pressing the brakes pretty hard. The pedal's very squishy, so not a lot of feedback. Although granted, it doesn't turn that much worse than the van. If the van was the same length as this, the van would turn worse. But I'm not gonna do a 0 to 60. Yeah, that's weird. So whenever you go, let's say 2/3 throttle or more, it says to service air filter, even though the air filter is clean. We've checked it, but it doesn't do that when you're just normally cruising around. I'm assuming because when you floor it, it requests a lot of intake volume through the filter, and it's not getting it, I'm assuming. It's quite heavy. I also noticed that the brake rotors are warped pretty bad. I can feel it in the whole truck when I'm slowing down. So I'm just gonna come to a stop and just floor it. 3, 2, 1. Little shove of torque there. 30. And 60. 10.94 seconds. We'll go all the way to the corner. Still on the floor. Barely doing 70. Now we're going downhill, so it will help. We got to the quarter, there we go, 1794. We'll do a little rolling thing here. Ironically, this thing actually handles surprisingly well. I think it's because it's a dually, so it doesn't have much body roll. Like this thing, corner's actually very flat for how large it is. Yeah, so right here I'm doing about 68 through the corner, and there's very little body roll, which is weird for something that's this big. Now, one thing I do notice is that there's not much body roll on the back, but on the front you can feel the tire sidewall like deforming under the weight of the vehicle, kind of shifting around. So let's park it. Having parking sensors on the front of the truck though is really nice, because then you can know how far away you are, because I can't really even see because the hood's so big. So that was an overview of the 4 cars that we still do have. Now there are 2 cars that you've seen on the channel before that we do not have anymore. The first one is the 2018 Hyundai Elantra. That was my mom's daily driver before we bought the Traverse. The second car that we have sold since this channel's beginning is the 2021 Polestar 2. As much as I love the Polestar, it didn't do enough extra versus my Tesla to justify the extra price, which the price was pretty much double in insurance and purchase price. So the Tesla just made more sense for me. Although I do miss that car, I do miss the unique factor of it, and I do believe it does drive a little bit more, let's say, grown up than the Model 3, which is more of a go-kart feel. Anyway, those two cars have, the Elantra was sold with around 110,000 miles, and the Polestar was sold with about 18,000 miles. So those are the two cars that we have sold since then. That'll be the end of this video. See y'all in the next one. Bye, and it's raining.